Thanks, John. Okay. All right. Well, we are live and rolling. Lights, camera, action. Right? Yeah. Okay. So I did want to discuss calendar a little bit at the beginning of this meeting. So if you didn't bring your calendar, that is A-okay, but we might discuss it just a wee little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. I just want to touch on the subject, which is really the 27th. All Wednesday meetings for the church are like canceled, so we will not be meeting November 27th. Do we all agree? Since the church will be
Is
closed.
the next day Thanksgiving?
I think so,
Yeah.
the 28th.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Makes sense? So we'll be pushing that back. Okay? Well, let's begin in prayer, since humility is a great place to start. All right? Father, thank you for your love and your guidance in our life. Thank you for you leading us. For the sons of God are led by the Spirit of God, as your word says. And so just pray a blessing on this room tonight, that we will continue to hunger and thirst and grow in you as a plant that's sees the sun and grows towards it and has that nourishment, the good soil, the water, and all the photosynthesis stuff that goes on that happens to make a plant grow. I pray that in us, in our anatomy, that our brains, our spirits, our souls will grow tonight here in this meeting and then throughout the week as we're studying this content, to become better leaders and influence people for your kingdom, to help influence Christians to a greater reach, and to help influence those that don't know Jesus to meet him and begin a relationship. So thank you for your guidance and spirit in our life, and we ask for this humbly in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
I know that song.
Amen.
Go ahead, you say it.
Amen.
All right. Nice jacket.
Thank you.
That looks good on you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Got it at the thrift store.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah.
Sweet.
Wow, not only does it look good, but the price was right.
It's so right, dude. It was like $3 or something.
All right. Well, cool. I guess we'll learn from John Wesley.
All right, guys. So the law of intuition. What does anybody have a definition for intuition?
That's what I asked Debbie earlier.
Intuition?
What is the
I
definition of
totally forgot to
intuition?
look it up because I fell asleep last night.
Well, my definition of intuition, although it's not Google, is just to know within. Kind of like enthusiasm means like God within. So intuition to me is just like something that you just get it. Like it's just inside of you. You see it without transferring of information. So it's just inside of you. Intuition.
Okay. I see. I could see that.
Just something you know without prompting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost second nature, like that.
Second nature?
Almost.
Or
like
first
that.
nature even, yeah.
Or first nature.
Yeah, but second
Like you
nature
kind of
works.
like know what you're doing. So like,
With intuition based on what we're studying, intuition to me is being thoroughly prepared and understanding what you're walking into, and then being able to feel good about the direction you want to go.
Mhm.
for sure.
There's a spot in here that basically said what you just said, maybe a little different, but right along those same lines.
The story whenever he walks in and his CEO says, "You're right in line with us."
Mm-hmm.
Is that the part you're talking about, Larry?
I'm not real
Leaders are readers of their situation. Page 92.
Oh yeah.
Or 93 actually at the top. You are very aware of the atmosphere and environment, he explained. You ask good questions and quickly follow in
Yeah.
step with us on our journey. It's never awkward when you return to the office. As I reflected, I realized what he was describing was my use of the leadership intuition.
I even underlined some of that in my yellow highlighter.
First thing came to my mind was women's intuition, because you hear that phrase,
Mother's intuition.
mother's
That's what I
intuition,
call it.
woman's intuition.
Oh
I know that doesn't apply in this case, but
My wife doesn't buy that. It's women's intuition. Well, what about guys' intuition?
I think mother, I mean,
I'm just joking.
I thought about that.
curious. I think.
you could have it, why can't we have it? But we're always wrong.
Look at some of the things y'all men do.
I did kind of
By-
notice.
by the way-
Kind of got a little
Gary
wedge
is
going
not
on here.
exhibiting leadership
By-
qualities
by the
right
way,
this particular moment.
You know why all,
He's being an aggregate to stir us up. Correctly.
you know why all women's restrooms are
On the right.
on the right?
Why is that?
Because they're always right.
Oh, there you go. There you go. They're always right.
Well, I think that I might be off base, and again, I'd have to leave you guys in business and maybe you. That God wired us so differently that I think we do have a different form of intuition in a godly way. It's not the fact that a man doesn't have it, but his comes across as a totally different way. I mean, we're mama bears. Anybody hurts our kids, our grandkids, look out. I mean, there won't be enough room under the jail to hide you when I get done with you if you go after a child. So it's a different instinct for us to have that type of intuition.
However, I also believe that men have an intuition that women don't have as far as protecting and knowing situations that are fearful or dangerous when maybe the woman doesn't really see that.
Yeah, agreed.
You
Yeah,
know,
like
I mean,
foxhole type
yeah.
stuff almost. Okay.
Like I really don't trust this person. Where the woman might not sense that. I feel like that a lot of men have that
Yeah, I definitely
a
think
little stronger maybe than some women.
yes,
Yeah.
more than some women for sure.
Yes.
I do think that big chunks come into play whenever we're talking about like men and women, but I know some men that have a distinct empathy and intuition to sit across the table from somebody and feel what they're thinking
Yes.
and really be able to challenge that. But then on the whole, most of the time, the women are more naturally gifted in that area of relationship. I
Yes.
think it's because it's more cultivated. There's been statistics about whenever you're raising a baby girl versus a baby boy, the baby girl requires like 2/3 as much eye-to-eye relational contact as boys do in development for like healthy. I don't know how they calculate that, but it was something that they needed more of that relationship in the beginning. From the 0 to 5 age bracket. I think it's really powerful that that as an intuition, that like even John Maxwell had the leadership intuition, and I told you this on the phone today, was I don't have intuition in art. Like whenever something like, hey, this looks art, like that thing right there on the wall, or this hand's right above Gary, like to me, that looks like the blue guys lost their hands, you know? If you don't remember the blue guy musicians, like, and then this thing over here. I mean, I can appreciate it, but my gosh, I'd never draw that or look at it and with all. I'd always look for the errors in it and be like, this is what's wrong.
Do you know what it is?
I have no idea what it is.
Read what it is on the bottom. Can you read what it is
Can
on
you
the
read that
bottom?
there? From the
This is-
sister to
From the
ninth?
6th to the 9th. That's what it says.
That's the 6th to the 9th. That's when God was creating.
Oh.
And that is also.
Yeah.
And this is also. These are all pictures about Matt.
Creation.
About creation.
Oh. Matt, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you never
I
knew
always
that,
wondered
did
Now,
ya?
what does that even mean?
Like,
From the
Now
6th
it makes
to the 9th.
better
I don't
sense
know what
to
that
you.
means.
Well, 6th to the 9th, because there's only 6 days of creation. So what's the 6th to the 9th mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
But anyways,
See, I see a lot of images in that one.
you
that
can.
one,
You could see like in the. I mean, you can. If you sit there, you can see a dolphin and a.
I mean, if I stare at the concrete too, I
Yeah.
can also make out stuff.
But I mean, that one right there to me makes really perfect sense.
Okay. Yeah, that one makes way more sense since
Yes.
you explained it. But like for me, my intuition.
Well, when the earth was
That's so
formless
much
and void,
Yeah.
see, that one does nothing, but that one I see.
I like the colors in that, but see, I don't see anything either.
okay. Well,
Probably
these were
worse
done
than
by
the
Matt, and it's
people
all about
there.
creation.
Okay. Okay.
That's crazy.
But see, that's one of the things that I just
Who
think is
created these art pieces?
Matt.
Matt Barish.
Matt Pierce?
Yeah.
So
That one there looks like it's not finished to me.
Well,
the color in here.
No, like these pencil drawings, right where your hand's at, right there. Yeah.
I wondered about that too when I saw it.
Well, yeah.
well, he did it on top and the bottom, so it has
Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about, Gary.
something.
That-
You know,
When I sit here, I'll look at that.
you want him to
That's not
finish it,
finished.
but that's something though about you. It's not something about him. He was
I mean,
probably
you
trying
know,
to
that's-
communicate something
that's
with
what I
that
always thought.
unfinished
I
work.
think you forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, and bearish right there. Oh,
Yeah.
9. Wow. Okay. Well,
Well, anyways.
back to intuition. Like, I think sometimes, like Larry, you were mowing the lawn today, right? So you might drive past somebody's lawn and look at it and be like, they got that on a 5 instead of a 3, you know, as far as grade, right?
Oh.
Levels and stuff.
Yeah.
Like your natural intuition. I think it was in this chapter where he talks about John Candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way you like see
Has everyone
stuff.
seen that movie?
Yes.
No, I
It's-
never saw it.
It's been a while. It's fairly funny, but you know, Roman saying you can change it into some sort of a profit. I just think it's so powerful that you have the intuition. You see through your own lens principle,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's what intuition kind of is. But then trusting that was so key. I'll digress. Go ahead, Kevin.
For sure. Oh no, he could have kept going. I know, but what really stuck out to me about seeing through the lens well before that, it stuck out. The story about General Schwarzkopf had stuck out to me with the battalion of the 6th Infantry. And like that, they were saying before he had got to that battalion, they said they joked about him. You know, they said like they were the worst of the 6th because they were supposed to be like the best of the 6th, but like they were nicknamed the worst of the 6th because they were so, you know, unorganized and all this stuff. So they were a joke basically. But General Schwarzkopf, I guess, was really was he known for like just turning around?
He took a lot of commands and no one else would take.
He
He's a tough old man.
Oh, he is, man.
I've heard stories about the 6th.
a soldier's soldier, and he I read an autobiography of him and Colin Powell, and he was a soldier's soldier, and the soldiers admired him, and he actually was wounded and hurt and saved lots of people's lives and all kinds of stuff. And Colin Powell listed in the book here, and he's using intuition. His intuition was on the Iraq War. Okay, he was lied to by subordinates, but he held his position and he told the whole world a story that he believed. But his intuition in his autobiography was he wasn't told the whole story, but he was the man in charge, and he had to step up and hold the line and tell a fact. And it changed the direction of a lot of things. But his intuition, according to his, was he wasn't so sure that what he was saying was really truthful.
I wonder how much body language plays into it, because they'll teach you a lot in marketing classes, public relations, to read body language when you go in. I notice you do it a lot. When somebody is talking, you will automatically lean in. And when you lean into somebody, that tells them that you're interested in what they have to say. So I wonder how much being able to read body language plays to intuition. Because, you know, if somebody is standing with their arms like this, that means they're defensive. Certain rolling of your eyes or, you know, but just different things that I think body language plays a big part in intuition.
I didn't even think about that, but I mean, it's so in tune with like first nature or second nature. I think that as well, it's the aspect of a learned skill versus a natural like ability or natural intuition. Because anybody can learn body language, and I think he highlighted that, saying there's 3 kinds of leaders,
Yeah.
you know, and so we all kind of fall into one of those categories. We're not the bottom one because we're actually reading the book,
Right.
and but you know those first two, like it's just natural for leadership or for people skills, right? Maybe you have an intuition towards people, not necessarily influencing them, but just relating to them, just being a good listener. You might not even be the influencer in the relationship, the leader. You just might be a good relator to talk to them.
Can you be, again, speaking to is business, can a leader be, a person be all three of these at once or at any given time?
No,
What
is
page
my
are you
answer.
on?
96 and
95
5.
and 96.
95 and 96, the three levels of leadership intuition. Does a leader strictly fit into one category? Can they fit into two categories? Does it depend on the situation?
I think people, I think they're all different because with number one, I mean, with all of them, I mean, well, except for I guess the last one because they wouldn't be, I don't know if they'd be open to improvement, but for 1 and 2, like it sounds like they have they sound like they would have more of a growth mindset where they would want to become, you know, strive to be better, even if like somebody who naturally understands leadership, they might not necessarily be a good leader yet. They just might understand it. You know, they might have to do the work to, you know, become a better leader. You know, so I mean, all of these really could be. You could all grow from. They could all like really grow. So, you know, in one way, I guess they're the same and kind of different at the same time.
Every one of us has characteristics that we're born with.
Mm-hmm. Right.
These 3 things that you on these pages, probably you have one of those characteristics as your strong point, and the other 2 can be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay? So every one of us is unique and different. That's what God made us.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, and when we study personalities and stuff a little later on,
Yeah. Definitely.
you'll see that every one of us has traits and things that were God-given. And so looking at those 3 things, you probably fit in one of those, and you can work on the other 2.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Kind of, sort of.
Can I elaborate
Mhm.
my thoughts on it? I think that going back to like your natural abilities, this book and the lens of which John is writing this book, sorry, not you, John, this John, Maxwell, he's writing it to leaders. So these 3 different things, you can take these 3 different areas of those that naturally have it, those that need to nurture it, and those who will never understand it, and you can put any other category on there: people skills, leadership, marketing, math, arithmetic, writing. Like you can put anything else. In this scope of just leadership being the only thing, you either have it and you develop it, you get it, but it takes you a little longer to get it, but you can still develop it, or you just don't get it and you're just not a leader.
And you don't want to be.
And you don't want to be.
Okay.
That's the way I understood that.
Yeah.
You know, it's either they're pretty cut and dry with those 3 categories.
Right. And
Were you ever around anybody where you thought, gosh, you could make a good leader, but they just don't do it?
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't do it.
Yeah.
I come to mind this guy, Larry Hostetler. He's a very good musician. He went to school. He graduated from school early.
Mhm.
He just has a forethought of songs in his head, etc., etc. And he's in a band, and people will tell you he's the leader, and the reason why is because he's the best musician. But sometimes I'll get on him. I'll say, Larry, that's his name. Why don't you get these guys rounded up and show them stuff and tell them what to do? Well, Stuart, if they're not want to do it, but the band, they play together.
Yeah.
But I just think they would be better off if he would take the leadership role, but he doesn't. You know, sometimes I was reading this book even tonight and thinking about him, and that's the opposite of a leader. And then when it said some people, those will never understand leadership, but he just doesn't want to. he's just happy doing what he's doing.
In,
So
in,
anyway.
in different environments, especially in the corporate world, okay, you can be outstanding in one area, the post office or music or, you know, in your business, and you get promoted to a leadership. You don't have the skills to be a leader. You were just really good at that subject.
Yeah.
But half the time, the company doesn't want to engage in some training for you because you could be a really great leader, but they're
Right.
too frickin' cheap and lazy to do
I
it.
love this
Sorry.
quote. One of the best quotes. It was, I don't know if it was like Walt Disney or Dr. Seuss. I think it was Dr. Seuss. He said, "The only thing worse than paying for skills for an employee that quits is not paying for skills and the employee stays."
Yes.
Huh?
I mean, why wouldn't you do that, you know?
Well,
But then sit there and complain. But to me, there's so many people that have potential to do the job, but they won't train them and give them just a little boost so they can do their job in the right way.
As a manager, as an owner of a large company, it was really hard for me to promote you if you were excellent at what you did.
And why was that?
Because I would have to replace you and train somebody to take your position. And then train you to be excellent in another position when you were already making the company a lot of money.
Except for then they get discouraged because they aren't ever promoted, and then they leave, and
So-
then you not
so
only
your
have that hole, but
So-
now you have a new
So-
hole.
So your intuition was not
Well,
there.
my moral compass was I never wanted to hold anybody back. So if I felt that was best, I would weigh it. What I usually promoted. But that's a tough decision when you're looking at your bottom line and your training and the cost of training and will you be as good in this new position as you are here?
You know, that's funny you said that. Here I go back to the baseball mentality. That's like the best athlete on the field. Do I want you as catcher because you're really good at that position and you're the leader of the infield? Or would I rather have you in center field to lead out there? But yeah, you just don't know what to do. Thinking, man. And then when you empty his one spot, you got to fill the other one. So anyway,
Well,
what were you
Gary,
gonna say?
what you were just saying about like promoting that guy, it goes to relationship and then your intuition as the leader of that company, because that's where it plays, and that's what this whole chapter is about. Is because I mean, if maybe that guy doesn't want to get promoted. I mean, most
Very
people
well
want
could be.
advanced
Yeah.
want advance, but man, if they're on a commission structure and they're crushing it in sales, and they have their base salary of 30,000 or 40,000, but they're making 50 on top of
Yeah,
it,
they
then
might
they
not.
don't want to go to the next one where they have to manage more people and take on. But it's all about the intuition and the relationship, and I feel like both of them. Because when John walked in, well, going back to what is leadership, it's influencing people. So it's those relationships. So that goes into empathy, that goes into people skills, like leadership kind of. And it was the law of respect, I think, at the last of that chapter that talked about, leadership ability, respect for others, courage, success record, loyalty, and adding value to others. Those 6 different dynamics of the leader's intuition in walking it out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
And then then transfer that to like here. You know, you want somebody, you would like somebody to do something, they have the skills, but they don't want to assume that role,
There's a lot of reasons, though, that people don't want to assume it, I think, sometimes. That's like where I work. Somebody came in and did some type of training with us. I can't remember, but they haven't given us a raise in probably 3 years. Our commissions are less than normal commissions. It's like 1% of whatever. And they're afraid to invest in people in the company because they say, well, they'll take what we've taught them and take it to another company, or they'll try and start their own. And I think that is a tendency to, stifle some leaders from doing things. Or the leader gets I've raised this person to do better, do something really good, and what if he does it better than me? Syndrome. The words are leaving my head. What do you
I think
call?
anyone's knocking.
I don't think anybody.
What's the rattling? But that is a lot of rattling.
I think those are just kids out
But
there running
the
around.
person training them gets afraid that they can do it better than, you know.
Maybe it's the wind blowing.
There's the Holy Spirit knocking.
Okay, quit that.
There's some more paper that fell out, by the way, on the
Huh?
bottom.
There's a piece of paper that's on the floor by
Right in
your
front of
foot.
by your left foot.
Somebody put this under the door and that was the issue?
No,
No, it
I
fell out.
put
It
that
was
in the
already in there?
left-hand
Oh.
side.
In the corporate world and in the general world, there's ladders of success.
Mhm.
And like you just said, some people don't wanna step up that ladder.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncommon for a really big promotion. Some people take their husband or their wives and they all go out to dinner. And they talk to the spouse and the prospective person
Yeah.
to get a feel for
Home.
comfort, home life,
Yeah.
those kind of, it is proven that some people will only work up to the income level that they want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're comfortable at making 65,000 and the position says 95,000
Mm-hmm.
or 35 and 65,
Yeah.
okay? If you're comfortable at 35, you're not gonna do a good job at 65.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even working at the post office, I always thought that because I could have been, and so could Debbie. Man, they probably bugged her more than they did me. Seriously, just because she was a woman back when, because they wanted to promote them. But I thought I'm going to make $20,000 extra a year, and I'm going to have to do this. Forget it. I'm just going to stay as a rural carrier, a happy idiot delivering mail, and I have plenty of money, and I'm good. I mean, it's funny, but that's what I used to think to my. Because if I'd move up a notch, I'd be getting it from both ends, the upper management and the
Yeah.
workers. And it's like, it ain't worth 20,000 more bucks a year. Forget it.
So if I was recruiting you for a position or wanted to promote you, I would recruit your spouse too.
Oh yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
There's a book, Entre Leadership by Dave Ramsey, and that's one of his 12 steps for hiring somebody. Is you go on a double date, Dave and his wife, or whoever the manager is that's hiring them, and the new employee and their spouse. Because sometimes he had some funny stories in there with some spouses that were, cutthroat, just a
Really?
weird random personality. And he's like, man, if your spouse is crazy and you're gonna have struggles at home, you're gonna have struggles at work too. So
I could
it's
see
a
Adam
holistic
and
thing.
Bethany going, our youngest son, but I think if he would take his wife, it would be a plus, don't you? Because she's a little spitfire, Bethany is. I mean, she can talk to anybody on both sides of the
Well,
track.
the psychology behind that too is if I wanted to promote your spouse or you, male or female, I would want your spouse to support you in this position.
Mm-hmm.
If I got the feeling that you weren't going to be supported, then I would have to think, so, because I know how much this position or whatever is going to require, and if your spouse isn't receptive to you working extra hard or long hours or travel or whatever, you gotta weigh all that.
I think that's a very smart business move there. It really is. Because
Well,
then
yeah,
both
because-
parties know what's
What's gonna happen?
gonna happen, what's at stake, what the responsibilities are. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's good. I never really heard that before, but.
Because there's
never-
nothing worse than an employee that's going through a divorce or something.
Mhm.
That is
personal
just
problems.
awful.
Yeah.
It is, and it really is difficult for anybody to leave that totally out of their world for the day, isn't
It's
it?
so tough.
Oh yeah, 40 hours a week. Yeah,
When
can't do it.
when I worked at a call center, it was like stressful there. Then I had stress at home because of like my roommate. was on some stuff, and it really affected me in my workplace, and I would be more stressed out at work than I needed to be, you know, so it was crazy. So that definitely takes a toll on folks.
Okay, so we don't know how, we do not know how to get in state and stay there, do we?
How to get in state and stay
Yeah,
there?
no.
Well, most employees don't. Let's say that at least.
I've never
Yeah.
heard that philosophy.
That was my first time, like, in the actual, like, in a big boy job, you know what I'm saying? Like, I worked at McDonald's beforehand, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Are you saying a call center is not a big girl job?
No, I'm
it's
saying it
opposite.
was.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay.
It was my big,
Sorry, I
it was
heard
my
that,
first,
it just
it was my
went-
first big boy job, like,
Okay.
out of college, yeah.
This is a really a true story. I made some really bonehead hires.
No, Gary, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
It never happened.
No, I
Never-
did. And then I learned to listen to my wife. And so I would do a lot of interviewing and set the table and do all this stuff. The last call was dinner with my wife. And she would tell me, I don't think that person's not gonna work out, Gary. Now, your wife loves
That's
you.
the intuition of
Yeah.
a woman, see.
Your wife loves you, or your husband
Empathy,
loves you,
relationship.
and they're gonna tell you what they feel. It's your choice to make a decision. But almost every time she said, I don't know, that was not a good deal. And that's intuition.
Me and Jesse did the last hiring for people because Walt is really bad at it. I mean, he's awful at it. I mean, we had to do the interviewing and all that, and you know, it's like, oh gosh, he is so awful at it. He hates it.
I would have it
And
all
he
set
hates
to go. I
picking
was gonna
people.
get ready to, in dinner. Gary, I don't think that's gonna.
Saved you a lot of time once you learn to listen.
So,
And
You
it's
know-
important to have that
you
person.
tell
Yeah.
her if you talk to her, I praised her.
Definitely.
Because she saved me a lot of grief.
But like, think about it, how much more of a struggle business would have been. And I'm sorry, I know you're
Oh,
ready to go to
no.
the next question.
Oh, you're
If you
good.
didn't have Sandy,
Yeah.
like in that area that sometimes we forget, hiring a single person or a spouse that is against it, you know, from the hiring side. But think about church, right? Think about here, if you're starting a ministry or doing something, and you don't meet with the spouse of who's leading that.
The
Right.
key thing for Pastor Dave
Mm-hmm.
here is he's dealing with volunteers.
Yeah. Change
Okay,
it.
and you can't treat volunteers like you treat paid staff. Well,
Yeah.
and that's not just this church, that's every
Yeah.
every organization. When somebody's volunteering their time or their best effort, that's different.
Yeah.
What's really frustrating is when somebody says, I will do that, and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
Either at all or just so poorly that it's, you know, it's like, why would you say you were gonna do that when I could have did it myself and been okay, you know? I mean, I feel like that's as big of a problem as not even getting anyone to step up. You know, I don't understand that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know things happen in people's lives, you get sick, you get whatever, but it seems like that happens a bit.
You have to give 100% of it, no matter whether it's a volunteer or paid position. If you volunteer to do it, it's like at Halloween in our office. Oh my gosh, we had a contest, and I don't do spooky, scary. I hate clowns with passion. I don't do scary.
Like any clown?
Oh no, do not even put me in a room with a clown because I will claw my way out of the room. But they had a contest and they said, okay, last year I did Harry Potter theme and did all sorts of things. This year it was Nightmare Before Christmas. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to go whole hog with it, as they say, and do the 9 yards. So if you're going to say you do it, why do you only do it? I know the word I would normally say out in public, but halfway.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense.
Well, that goes to a character issue that we've talked about already in this room with generations or even just ethics of following through on those words whenever they commit to something. So having some sort of a different carrot on the other side, I think is important for people that are motivated that way, but it can't be a paycheck. But quite often in negotiations, financial isn't always the end-all be-all. Sometimes it's promotion, like the feeling of importance, which is what people crave the most, or a food reward even sometimes. I mean, you do
They do that in
anything
our office all the time.
that's basic, yeah. So, and then maybe
Donuts.
recognition. Oh my
I
gosh,
tell them, give me a cookie.
love that.
I do that.
People
When they
love
say,
recognition.
Donnie, you did good, I said, okay, give me a cookie then. And then invariably, there's a cookie on my desk.
Voila.
I invested 2 years into an individual, and we were just like this. And he was only 27, I was 48 or 50 somewhere. And we were close to landing this huge account. He walks in my office and he says, Gary, I have to quit. Why? He says, I need a title. He graduated from the University of Ohio State, and with a bachelor's degree and all this stuff, and all his buddies are now CFOs, CEOs, presidents, and he was a salesperson. He says, I hate to leave, I hate to quit, but I need a job with a title.
Wow.
Wow.
Now he's running a $7 million company. That's the kind of stuff that really.
Why didn't you tell him you can be vice president?
I'll make
I'm
you up any
president.
kind of card you want.
Chief enthusiasm
I'll
officer.
just give you a little
But
name tag.
that was heartache. That was heartache because there was a lot invested,
Yeah. Wow.
and we were clicking. You know, it was.
Man.
What did Sandy say on the dinner before you hired him?
John, I got a
Oh,
question for you.
his nickname was Make a Deal.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Make a
geez.
deal, and he put himself through Ohio State as a professional gambler.
Wow.
I know a lot
He
of
showed me
students
his
who do.
IRS where he filed his taxes of, when you're a professional gambler, you can deduct your losses and your winnings. He graduated from Ohio State with a degree in business, but he paid his way as a professional gambler.
What a savage.
Remember that guy on Jeopardy that won all this money? I mean, he was a long
Are you
time.
talking about Ken?
Yeah.
It was Ken something.
I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
But
what's
remember,
his
he was,
Yeah.
I mean, he said he went to Las Vegas, but he was a professional gambler. So I guess he had to pay taxes and so on. But I thought he was just kidding at first, but the more they talked about it with him, he was serious. And this guy, gosh, he was
kept
smart.
winning and winning
He kept
and
was
winning
so
and
good.
winning.
He was like there for like almost a year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It was a long
It
It was a
time.
long time.
Yeah.
And he was
If
so
we wouldn't
smart.
watch it for
I
a
mean,
week or so and turn on, that guy's still there.
Still there.
It was getting to be kind of boring because he would just win. You felt bad for the other people. Come in a year or two,
There was
you're not
anything
gonna
he
win.
didn't know though, you know, they have all the different categories and he was
He
like,
probably had like a
everything.
photographic memory or something. I feel like that's an unfair advantage for the rest of us, isn't it?
There's gifts, right?
Like,
And there's
super gifts.
skills on there. What's up,
Yeah,
Donna?
On page 95, under leaders or readers of themselves, there's one sentence that says, it's easier to damage an organization. It's easier to damage an organization than it is to build one. Is that actually true?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because like building an organization takes a lot of work, hard work, sacrifice, the right folks. In like damaging an organization, there can be a lot of things that can damage an organization. There can be like rumors, there can be people not moving with like integrity, not being honest and things like that. You might have like the wrong person, the wrong type of person in leadership positions. Like for example, like Enron back in the day, how they would recruit people that were like talented but not necessarily like ethical. So if you have an ethics problem, it's gonna show eventually. It might not show like at first, but it's gonna show like eventually, you know. So
Well, that's like the law of solid ground or law of respect. If
Yeah.
you're just gonna be a rat, eventually you're gonna be smelled out.
Yeah.
You know.
But especially in certain businesses, think about, okay, it's like what you're saying about that kind of a person. Like say it's a, I don't know, what kind of a business, like an investing business or a.
Rubber company.
Not a rubber, well, there's a lot of, but that, even in that kind of business, you know, if somebody comes to us and we sell them this kind of belt that costs 3 times the amount of money as this kind of belt, I mean, that eventually is gonna, when they don't need that, they could use this one. That eventually, right there, is gonna come back to bite you, but in a situation where it's, you know, it's a matter of trust, I feel like that can tumble a company really fast, because, and especially now in an electronic age, oh, look what they did.
Intuition to a leader can be his worst enemy.
Elaborate.
Okay. A leader with good intuition, you give them a turn around a company or create a program or what, he or she can, in a very short period of time, solve the issue with their intuition and their judgment and all those things. But the other people that are in the pipeline, he has to pull them along, like Jobs.
Yeah.
He was fired from Apple because he was way out here and his company was way back here. Then when they brought him back, the company had shifted more in line with where he was 10 years earlier. So with strong leadership and a belief in intuition of where you want to go, what you want to do, how you want to do it, it's like pulling teeth to get all the other players to come along with you. And that's what happened to, you know, it says here that he picked up the phone and called Bill Gates. And the two of them, I just read a book about the most influential person in Bill Gates that he's ever met, Bill Gates ever met. This guy, his name was Ray Dalio.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, what's the name of his company? Water. Sorry,
Yeah.
forgive me. Go ahead.
Yeah. And now, Bill Gates has all the money in the world, and this guy's the most influential person that Bill Gates has yet to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an investment banker, and he started just like you guys around here, dabbling and playing in college and investing in steps and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's the most influential person that Bill Gates has ever met.
Yeah.
And,
Did you read The Principles? Is that the book?
yes.
Dalio's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, going to your point, 2 things. Your question was, can you do it? Can you lose your organization faster than you built it? Fairly? Is that kind of the question? On page 62, you don't have to go there, but it was the law of solid ground when he was talking about. He had several new programs starting in the church. Preparations for the exhausting Christmas season were in full swing, and I was traveling quite a bit. It was very hectic. Because I was so busy, I let my choleric nature get the better of me and made a big mistake. Essentially, in my opinion, he trusted his intuition, but he did not inform the people. Whenever it said, I very quickly made 3 major decisions and implemented them.
He cut down on his steps, the process.
He cut down the processes and the navigation of setting things up properly in that organization, and then he realized it wasn't long before I began to sense some unrest among the people and to hear rumblings. First, my attitude was that everyone should get over it, right? Because I'm right. But essentially, that's not what he said, but he really was. Like, he did 3 good decisions, but because he just trusted his intuition, instead of, like, it's why you said it can bite you. But it's not just doing the right things, it's how you do the right things that really matter in influencing, especially volunteer organizations, because there's no stick on the back end. There's no punishment for doing things wrong. You just did them wrong, and then it doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't work as a whole. I love Steve Jobs, though. I'm glad you brought that story back up again. What he's done, I'm so disappointed with Apple these days.
Me too.
Well, Jobs, he's not around anymore, is he?
No,
He died of
pancreatic cancer.
pancreatic cancer, I believe.
It wasn't even that long ago, was it? Just a couple years ago?
A few years ago.
5 to 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
It's been
That
a
long?
while.
Probably like 4
I guess so.
And Apple
He
still
never
is
got to ride his yacht.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had the world's largest yacht. He never got to.
Aw.
Damn.
And Apple still has not come back.
Well,
It's-
stock-wise, they're doing great. I mean, it's not a problem.
Stock wise, be cool,
But
like,
that's because they take 30% from every app purchase. So imagine all the apps money being made from in-app purchases and subscriptions, like a communication app or
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
App gets 30% of all of that, all across all across the globe.
So if you were back to working on that app that you
Mhm.
were working on,
Apple will get 30% of the revenue that comes in through the App Store. So if we did $1 billion, they would get $300 million.
dang.
Now there's ways around it, like if it's a location-based thing, like Uber doesn't pay that fee. But anything that's like a subscription-based that's going through the actual Apple platform, yep, they get 30% of all those subscriptions. It's not like they have a choice. I'm just glad somebody convinced Steve Jobs to let other people develop apps. Steve Jobs was Apple only. Nobody else can develop apps. So then there was one guy on the board, and I forget where I read about this, but he sold Jobs on like, no, this will be a good thing. We can make and that's probably where they came up to 30% for that. So Jobs was happy, and
Wondered
everything
about
else
that.
happened.
For sure. Alright, so we kind of like, I had some questions, but it looks like a couple of these got answered already. What do you think creates intuition? I don't think did we go into that?
What creates
Like what
intuition?
creates intuition?
Birth.
Like having certain experiences, I feel like creates intuition.
I feel like it tests intuition. I don't know if it creates intuition.
I mean, I think sometimes it can, because
So?
you might not know, like, you know how people say you don't know what you don't know?
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
But
So,
God has created in us intuition of right and wrong.
mhm.
Yeah.
And so even though you know something's not quite right, we know that it's either good or bad or gray.
Right.
There is no really gray.
In the world we live in, it's all
I
gray.
think gray is kind of like when you killed somebody that killed somebody else. You're like, well, was that justified? I think that's what he means by gray. But
You know, I think there's some things that people, I don't know, they just have an ability, a knack to be intuitive. Just like, and I don't know how this plays into it, but like our granddaughter, she's 16 now. But I'm not joking you, and you can ask Debbie as my witness. When she was 3.5, she could pick this book up and read the whole page. I mean, seriously, not joking. I used to take her to bookstores and take her there when she was little. And I don't know why I do this. I'd go up to the counter to buy a book or something, and I'd have her read it, and I would just watch the cashier just look at her and look at me, and they would take the book. And but now, is that intuition? I don't know. How can a kid that age
Well,
learn to read like that? I mean, it's like
Exposure.
yeah, and I think the fascinating thing for me, because you can read, but she could comprehend. That was the part that put her over the top. She could comprehend well beyond her age, you know. So it's just reading the words was one thing, but she could tell you what,
she could write too.
you know.
When, maybe not at 3.5, but at about 6.5 or 7, she'd write little stories, which I even kept, and she'd name them and everything.
wow,
And it was kind of neat. And then she's homeschooled, but now
that's the answer, Larry. That's it right
Well,
there.
That
She
said
was
it all.
See? There you go.
even now she is tested out of everything as far as writing and reading
Yeah.
that high school has to offer.
I wouldn't describe that as intuition. I would say it's a skill set or
She's
Gift.
gifted.
the ability
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of
I-
something.
Well, maybe
Intuition
in-
is more the just the feeling of something.
Well, maybe people has the intuition, whatever gift like she had for reading. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
See, I'm like you, when I think of intuition, my first thought was mother's intuition, because I really have that with them, especially being so far away. You know, I can just be whatever and something will hit me and I'll think, just something's not right, or something is very good. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll call and they'll say, we were just gonna call you, or blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
So to me, that's intuition, I didn't have a hard time, but it's just, to think of it in a leadership role, that's what I think, it's like a feeling that leader has to do something, to move
You know what
forward
else
with a
too?
project or people or whatever.
It just made me think of this. Even when you're in prayer about something, or you're really seeking God's guidance in something, and you're really into it, thinking, asking Him for His help, and something happens where you go, wow. I mean, I've had that before, and it's like, this isn't, it wasn't a bad thing, it wasn't where I was gonna gain something, but it's just like a bam, a big knock in the head, like, this happened, that happened, and then this happened, and you knew it just wasn't by coincidence. So maybe intuition can be the Spirit of God leading you too. That could be some of it, don't you think?
Well, I
Can
think
for a Christian.
intuition is spiritual. I think we can definitely boil it down to that. Because I don't believe you have to be a Christian to have leadership intuition. You can be an ungodly
Yeah.
person, but you can still sense what's happening in a room
Right.
whenever you walk into it. And y'all probably even noticed this on Monday. You could look at the comparison of the intuition of how the day would play along based on those kids at the beginning of Good News Club
Yeah.
versus last year and how that is. And it's just being observant, but as having a leadership role, how do I think this was part of it where he was merging the law of E.F. Hutton from the old copy of this book. Whenever he updated it, he took out 2 laws, merged them together, and implemented 2 new ones. If you read that in the beginning of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, one of it was the law of E.F. Hutton was when the leader speaks, everyone else listens. And so I think it's kind of like that presence. Like, imagine Ronald Reagan walked into the door right now. Like, he would have our respect, our attention, our ear, and he would know intuitively what is going on here in order to influence. He'd probably make a joke to make us all calm down, and realize the sense,
Yeah.
and that's that leadership intuition. But if somebody else walked in here and they didn't say anything, or they were like, hey guys, we're gonna go do this, and didn't sense what was happening and that there was a change in tempo and that things needed to happen, it is spiritual.
I think a good leader has a degree of intuition, but they also have to be a good listener to evaluate their intuition.
Well, it says,
Okay,
here,
so if there was a subject to be discussed around this table and you were leading it and you've already made up your decision, is it wrong to ask different people questions to evaluate what they thought about your decision before you exposed your decision?
And you said, is it wrong? I'm gonna ask, if I already made a decision,
A strong leader can change his point or her point of view.
And I
But-
feel like they're stronger when they are able to do
But-
that.
If you get really confident in your intuition, you could also be confident you could make a wrong decision. So by evaluating your decision with the other people,
I feel like that's wisdom, though. I don't feel like that's intuition. I feel like intuition is how close you would line up with what the other people already thought.
what I meant was if you're the intuition person and you need to evaluate your decision by incorporating other people
Mm-hmm.
into the process.
Yeah.
And then,
They explain that kind of right here. It says through analysis,
Are you talking about what page you on, bro?
93 about the last 4 sentences. It says
Okay.
through analysis, but often the best leaders sense it first and find data to explain it later. Kind of like, well, if you know what you're going to do or you sense the intuition, now I'm going to ask somebody. I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to see what they say. Kind of like it, collecting data. or
Yeah.
whatever.
In a situation like that, though, if your employees know you and they know how you think and you operate, or you come across as, this is how he's handled this certain situation in the past, or facing it again, he's going to make that same decision. So, oh shoot, I just lost where I was going with that. Oh.
Anticipation of previous habits?
Yeah, so I mean, that to me can sometimes be misconstrued. I would look at, let's just say John comes in and says to us, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Starting 2 days from now, you're gonna have to do X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. And it's like, you know, and we knew he was gonna say that coming up, and it didn't change how we, never mind, I can't say it. I
How
can't
you,
think it
yeah.
through.
Is everybody else tracking? Maybe I'll piggyback on what you're saying to
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
like if John comes in here and says you have to do X, Y, Z instead of ABC, then because we knew John, going back to relationship, because you're talking about a former employee, boss person, that you already knew that was going to happen. Is that intuition, right? I think that is intuitive. I don't believe that's leadership intuition. I think that's relationship in the aspect of being the follower and knowing what your leader's going to do. Like knowing how your leader's going to do it. But I think intuition, if you reverse the roles somehow, where the leader knew what the followers were going to do and knew how to guide them beyond it, like playing multiple steps ahead. There's actually something I was reading about recently where a good chess player plays like 2 or 3 steps ahead. Great chess player plays like 5, but like the grandmasters do like 15 steps, like moves ahead or more. Like it's crazy. So in the same way with intuition, it's knowing and checking that data, just like what he was talking about. Be like, this is what I believe it is. Let me check, make sure that I'm not off. But then the intuition is knowing it beforehand. Like that's the spiritual side of it that I'm thinking, from my knowledge.
Let me ask you something. Since you had the class here,
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But I mean,
But you
everybody
are.
in
That's
here,
okay, Larry.
and we can't say stuff outside of the class, right? So
You can say
stays-
whatever you want. It's
Wait,
America, man.
Did you get to be the person on the school board?
Oh yeah, I
Hey,
did.
thanks. We had the vote yesterday.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm
I did
sorry.
a Texas
It
ballot.
just hit
so,
me.
sorry.
Hey, I voted for you yesterday.
Oh, that's
This class is gonna come in handy for you.
good. Oh, I've been thinking about it. Seriously, I have about doing certain things.
Differently.
I should. Yeah. And I even said to Debbie the other day about maybe I should get up there and get into some classes, etc. I did that once when I first started. But some people, they're always, what do you do on the school board? And basically you're just looking over how they work, etc. But anyhow, there's a lot to go into. But I could. That's what I think I want to really do is set in on some classes and see how they're, and ask the
Yeah.
curriculum director.
Trust your intuition there, Larry.
Yeah, there you
know
go.
what's going on.
That would be a good one.
Okay, but what was your question? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
now I kind of got off track, but when we went through this thing in the church about maybe switching over to the other church and this and that, well, that kind of fell through.
Uh-huh.
And now, whatever the outcome was, just let that lay there. But now, what do you think a person could have done different in the leadership role to make that different?
I've
From
actually wondered
intuition. Well,
I mean, because
we
they're
we actually discussed that,
in
Yeah.
here.
not in
Oh.
here, but in
your circle, right? Your circle with the elders and the
Yeah.
budget and merging.
From this book,
Uh-huh.
the thing that went wrong the most with that process was the details weren't answered.
Like up
Well,
front.
it was broad answers
Oh.
with no specific details.
Mhm.
And so the meeting we had Sunday, we tried to
Yeah.
keep it simple and give
The first meeting, right?
the details, both
March 31st, right? The very first presentation of it.
No,
This past Sunday.
this
past
past
Oh, this
Sun-
past Sunday,
Yeah.
the construction day. Okay.
Yeah, so we instructed the finance team to be specific, detailed, and then that's what Fred and I tried to do.
Okay.
So, and if you read the room like I was trying to do, it was a good atmosphere in there.
I liked it. Yeah. The
And,
recent one.
I don't know if the details would have helped.
Hmm?
I don't think details would have helped.
That's
The-
what I'm
talking about-
thinking.
Yeah.
Just make sure we're on the same topic. You're talking about the Grace merger presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
The details were too broad,
Yeah, but I don't think the people, I feel like it wouldn't have helped to be more specific and more, I don't feel like it would have helped.
That's-
Well, this is all opinion
I
based.
agree.
Everything from your question, it's open ended, and there's a lot into it that
Mhm.
could be read. I'm thankful for everything that did happen.
Yeah.
So, like, from the aspect of the leadership, it's really easy for us to sit in this room and be the armchair quarterback and say, like, hey, it's Tuesday afternoon or whatever, or it's Monday Night Football, and I'm sitting in my couch saying, oh, the quarterback on the replay should have done this.
Yeah, sure.
I wasn't the one in the pocket looking to make the throw that got intercepted. Whatever happened, the touchdown doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So it's easier for us to sit back and reflect. I was on my honeymoon when I saw it. When I read the information that was passed out for the follow-up meeting after, I think my dad gave the presentation that morning, actually, because it was
Yeah.
Yes,
my wedding.
yes.
My dad presented that morning, and then that afternoon was the first presentation.
Wow. I didn't even realize that, but.
Yeah, so I wasn't there.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I mean, I do think that from what I heard in the Say Whatever You Want meetings, I
Yeah.
heard the vibes where some people were like, I really like this. And
Yeah.
other people were like, man, like, I feel like I'm not understood.
Mhm.
So maybe, and there's a lot of different ways that could be taken. I think maybe having one-on-one meetings with the right people. Part of me really wanted the elders that were for it to try to sell it more. I feel like sometimes, from my experience, that they
Mhm.
were too broad, and then that the only ones that were actually like selling it were the ones that were against it. And so
Yeah.
part of that can go either way. But I do think that relationships, and people left the church over it, it's a fact, it happened. A lot of things were done really, really well. Like a lot of things. And I didn't burden myself with analyzing the details of what could have gone different. If we go back to the law of navigation, about how John worked through that, not this John, Maxwell, went through that in organizing out with the church, I thought, like Gary said, that's exactly what Dave did, as best as he knew how, to get the word out and to get it aligned. And people were still embittered about it. I think there was just too much emotions that weren't cleared up. And if those emotions could have been satiated, then maybe the relationship could have been more intact or influenced in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that there are people outside the church that shouldn't have said anything, shouldn't have been influencers at all, right? Because this church, I mean, I love it when I'm talking to Marissa and she's like, yeah, there was this couple and they used to go to Arlington. And there's this other guy and they used to go to, like, it's almost, and Craig mentioned it, we've kind of become a church in a way where it was like, oh yeah, I used to go there. But there's still a lot of people here, so there's still good stuff. It's great, and I'm a futuristic person, so I'm always looking towards the future. That was my number one strength in the Strength Finders test, was the future. So I'm really excited about what we can do moving forward with the people that are left. As far as what happened, in retrospect, could have been different things that could have been done, but people that are embittered are going to be embittered. Like, you can't change that. You can't change the temperature of that.
Yeah.
You have to just regulate it as best as you can and share it.
You know, too, not to get off on talking about that, but I was thinking about that today, cutting the grass and so on. You know, on one hand, I thought it would have been neat because the financial burden would have basically been lifted. There would have probably been a lot of new stuff and good stuff, if you will. I'm just looking at it that way. But on the other hand, you know, the reason why it fell through, maybe, and I always say, God wasn't surprised by this, you know what I mean? Nobody should take credit or not take credit for what happened. But maybe it's a learning experience for all of us, you know? I don't know, maybe this class kind of came out of it, you know? Well, it might have been part of it, you know what I'm saying? So maybe people will realize what we have, and then we gotta move forward with it.
Yeah.
And then maybe God said, well, I don't need another big church. I want to
Scrappy
create
church.
10 little
Scrappy
scrappy
church,
churches,
yeah, I
and
love that.
Arlington's one of them.
it's good.
So, you know
It
what I
is.
mean? I think you just got to think positive.
I really feel that Arlington has the potential to be a big church. Like, our seats is like 614 or something in the auditorium, right? In the sanctuary.
Yeah.
So, like, 614, 2 sermons per Sunday, or maybe a morning and an evening service, where you could fill that up with 500 people each. That's easily 1,000
Yeah.
people that we could easily have as members participating here. Not everybody would come every week. I see how that works, you know, numbers wise. But I mean, we're doing 22 on average, 222, not 22, sorry, 222 on average per week. That I just feel we have so much room to grow as an organization. I fear that people will want to maintain. So the reason I started this class was so that we could have some leaders that can have other people following them, so therefore we can grow up pockets of different people that are 20s and 30s, or not age demographics. You know, you leading a women's group of 20, 30 people, you know, y'all helping the Good News Club and getting their parents to come and attend and getting those kids to come up, like whatever it is, right? With Donna doing sports stuff, you talked about soccer, right? We got the clinic and stuff
That's
happening.
tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's the first one, but there's going to be a lots more. But if we can raise up leaders that can have followers come and attend, and then it's teaching those people. It's getting them into discipleship. It's getting them into the new groups and community groups and those relationships. If we have the mindset of stagnation as a church, we're going to stay stagnant. But if we have the mindset of growth, we can just
like that book, that Scrappy Church. That was a cool book. I got through about half of it so far, but yeah, it's just a matter of doing it, just getting out there and, you know, just doing something instead of like being in your little holy huddle. You know, it's real good, but, you know,
Right.
it's not going to do much.
I think the most positive thing that's come out of all this is the tagline, Front Porch Ministries.
Yeah, I agree with
That
that.
is just an awesome opening for your community. Front Porch Ministries. We oughta patent that.
I know the guy who can help.
That is just an awesome saying.
Even at the
It's
trick or treat
not
thing.
threatening.
Yeah.
It's open-ended.
Yeah, and people get it in this climate. In Texas, we don't have front porch ministries. It's hot. Go inside.
I think to me, the basic bottom line, I took 2 things away from this.
Chapter 8, intuition.
Yeah, in intuition, it was who you are dictates what you see, and the fact that as a leader, business, whatever, I can't think of another word other than cognizant. I don't know what the
that's
word
the
is.
right cognizant.
That a leader, because if you're cognizant of who your audience is, and you're looking at their body language and watch how they make eye contact with you. My dad used to have an expression, and I don't know if it's still used anymore. When a man shook hands with him, he knew the strength of the man by his handshake. If it was a wimpy handshake, he had a handshake like a wet fish. But if he had a real strong handshake, he knew the character of the man he was doing business with.
Well, what we're faced with today is I can put 15 words on a piece of paper, and you can read those 15 words one way, and Larry can read them another way,
And there's
and the
granddaughter.
same 15 words. And if you're left or right or middle, those words, they're the same words, but they're comprehended
Differently.
differently, and that's the world we're in.
Right.
You know, and the 15 best words can be viewed so badly.
I really can.
Do you agree with that?
I do.
Mhm.
Well, that's because we live in a world where people are so, so hypersensitive.
I can't believe you said that, Cindy.
I'm
You
so
just
Did you
triggered.
just call me
I'm
hypersensitive?
so
Yes.
triggered.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
So triggered.
But we have a world of really intelligent people,
I love
and
listening to that.
how can they see those 15 words so drastically different, or 15 thoughts? Say.
Well, it's like you take the word front porch ministries. Is there any other way to define that?
Somebody
Yes.
will find it.
Oh yes, there is. We talked about this at our community group. Let me explain. We talked about this at our community group. Everybody has a different definition. We probably need to have a church definition of what that actually means, by the way. Everybody had their own definition in our community group. And we have like 12 people in our community group. Every single person had their own definition
Of a front porch.
of a front porch ministry. Because
Can you give a couple
I remember
examples?
Jamie Cordy, Lyman, hers was a front porch ministry is where you're there, somebody's walking by, and you say hello, and then you sit together. You don't do anything. You just hang out and talk, and you just get to relate to them. You're not pushing people through a trunk line or them doing face paint or anything like that. You're just kind of getting coffee together, just hanging out right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was her definition. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones because mine was closely assimilated to Jamie's, but was it Jamie and then
My idea is that it's a gateway to the community.
Mhm.
It's a gateway to what's going on around you.
And I think it's very welcoming, you know.
Yeah,
just
we're gonna
just-
include you, we wanna include you.
Yeah, right.
So there you go. You have 3 different definitions right here. They all overlap,
And the
but they're all
interesting,
different.
and the interesting thing I think is you guys are doing as leaders in intuition, the words you use, your word choices, you used assimilate. He used a gateway. The words you picked to relate to your audience. Wasn't there a statement made once that your general population has like a 5th or 6th grade education average?
There was a lady on the news last night at 2:30 in the morning, and she's an educator, and she says that now they have to teach speech to where your speech has to be at a 3rd to 5th grade level to be comprehended.
So see the
When
words
you're
you
writing
choose.
an essay, it has to be 3 to 5th grade level for comprehension.
Yeah, so the words you choose, as a journalism student, I know a lot of words because you have to learn them to write. But in this neighborhood, in this concept, and maybe even some in our church, I don't know, how many people would maybe know, assimilated, what that means? How many people in our area would be able to take a big word and know it?
Well, even like if you said this distinguished guest of tonight, this evening, well, a lot of people say, distinguished, what, does he need a fire
That goes back to
extinguisher?
your
What's he saying?
not extinguished, distinguished. Your audience, right? So if Dave's doing a massive talk, that's going to be different than if he's doing a men's leadership talk
Right.
at the men's ministry, right? It would be different than how you would do the women's tea if you're talking at the women's tea thing, or if you're talking to kids at Good News Club.
You know, that's
That's
true.
gonna be
That's
different.
exactly what I was thinking of. How am I going to explain a Bible verse to the kids at Good News Club from kindergarten to 3rd grade? There's only so much they're going to really comprehend, so I got to try to get on their level.
Is Good News Club?
But by not raising their level, we're dumbing down the world.
Well, I know what you're saying.
I'll let them
That's
define it.
true.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's similar.
Most definitely.
By not raising the level of communication, we're dumbing down the world.
I completely
That's very
agree.
true.
I agree.
And I completely disagree because, like if you look at a letter, I think it was like the Silence Do Good letters that were written. Those were written at a 7th grade level. That is college today. So you're right. We are becoming dumber in that aspect. But I also believe that we are putting less of our attention on things that we don't value as much. I believe empathetically, as a culture, I can't say as a culture, I can just say we have access to more information so we can become smarter. I think that we are smarter than a lot of our forefathers in past history. Not necessarily in brilliance, but in sheer knowledge of being able to learn things faster. Our smartest people are smarter than the smartest people of the past, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But well, think about, like, just to get into, like, one of the elite schools, you have to be smarter than somebody who came before you, because now there's less. Look at the athletes today. The athletes are getting better every year. I believe it's the same with education and academics. They're getting smarter, but the bar keeps getting raised.
Or your aunt pays your way.
I think it's going lower and then
The data in the world is now multiplying at such a rate, it's quadrupling every day.
Yeah.
Okay, where our forefathers had a fixed amount of data, and it took longer to grow that data.
Right.
Today, because of technology, the data is just mushrooming.
Well, you think about it, if you want to be a plumber, so to speak, or work in your own house, if you have the tools, you can get on the internet and find out step-by-step.
My mechanic always says, I'll Google it and figure out how to do it to your car.
I know, you still have to do it, but a long time ago, you wouldn't even know where to begin, because you didn't have that information.
You had to read manuals and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a study that a doctor did in Fort Worth. I had the honor of hearing him speak. It was a really good lecture. I'd like to follow up with him, but the lecture was like 2 years ago. The brain in today's age is connected to their smartphone. So, like, those of us, well, you're 28?
29.
29? So 29, 30, 33, wherever it is that you became attached to a smartphone, your brain doesn't think about storing the information. It thinks about where can I access to get the information. It goes back to, like, the gateway, right? You're talking about it from the ministry side. But I don't actually retain, like, math formula. Why would I memorize a math formula when I can look it up right here? I can store that. I can store a memory from childhood there instead, or something else that I value. Unfortunately, some of the things that we value are like World of Warcraft or, stupid Instagram stories. Like, the value of what we're storing can be debated, and it should be. But maybe not right now.
For sure.
So, as far as intuition goes, you want to wrap us up, brother?
Yeah, man. I think we did a good job today, you guys. Talked a good thing about intuition.
I like number 2. One of the most important abilities in leadership is reading people, and then it gives you some ideas on, how you can do that. I like that. And train yourself to think in terms of mobilizing people and harnessing resources.
It's funny you highlighted the last 2. I was really going to highlight, if I had the opportunity, the first one. Because first, determine what your strongest natural talent is. And second, participate in that talent, paying attention to your feelings and instincts and intuition. But then, like, testing out the waters. I do this a lot. I've learned to trust my intuition to the second degree of when somebody wrongs me in business. So, like, if they make a mistake, I overlook it because it could be an error. The second time it happens, within, like, a quick period of time, and I feel that, like, something just happened the other day similar to this, I nip it in the bud immediately. I'll call them out on it or whatever it is, because typically I'm right that there's gonna be a third strike that's gonna happen, and I just don't wait for that anymore, because I've been paying attention to my intuition enough to be like, okay, I'm identifying it's the second time, and then I wait for the third time, and then the third time happens, I'm like, I knew I was right. So I've just learned to just trust it, and if it happens twice, I'm acutely aware of that in those newer relationships with when I'm communicating with somebody. It's mostly in communication breakdown. So, like, that's something that I've been growing in because of that, like, first thing, like, paying attention to your feelings, and then when do you know something is right before you have the evidence? And then, like, whatever that is, like, for you in art, you can look at something and be like, that ain't good, right? So, like, I can't do that.
Figures I drew for you the other day. Mine?
You probably hated my sermon with the stick figures and bridge and all that stuff. Anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was really exciting that he taught that, because I'm like, that's what I've been doing, and that gives me confidence to continue to do that in my people skills, in my networking, and then how can I grow that in other areas, whether it's negotiations or closing the sale or some of the back office stuff. Like, how can I do this right and do it, and then trust those instincts better to not have to ask somebody what they would do every time or look it up on YouTube. What am I supposed to do? You know, so that's been exciting.
What would we ever do without Google?
Right?
I don't know.
Most people couldn't drive home. They don't know where their house is or how to keep it. So next week, boom, the law of being attractive. I mean magnetism. Larry
Positive and negative.
Stewart. Okay.
Larry Sturt.
So if I'm mapping this out correctly, next week is going to be the 10th. Is that right? Today's the 7th?
Jesus.
6th.
Today's the
So that'll be the 13th,
13.
right? So then the 20th will be Cindy, and then the 27th will be off. So Marissa, whenever she would have been coming back, is going to be pushed to December. We're not going to be here. So Marissa's might need to be taken over by Gary or Mark Walker or someone, because we'll be in Dallas. So depending on when we
going there?
fly out. I don't have it yet,
Oh.
but it's going to be the first week of Dallas. We'll be flying out there.
The
Probably
first
a
week of
Monday.
Dallas?
December.
December. Thank you.
Oh.
First week of December. But anyways, that's what's up. That's what's happening next. And then come February time frame, I know Marissa and I will be gone a couple weeks during there. So we'll see where you have like 4 red Andrews in a row. Big picture, buy-in, victory, and Big Mo. That might be transferred to Mark Walker or Gary. Or anybody here that really wants to do
Do
something.
another one if you want.
You can do another one? Well, you haven't done any of them yet.
I know.
When
You
is there-
procrastinate towards the end. I love it. What?
When is our last Wednesday for the holidays? I mean,
I don't know.
The Wednesday before Thanksgiving would be the one.
Well, that's when we're
27th,
gonna
and then we go
skip
to
that
December?
one. Then we'll have a couple December ones, probably 2 or 3. I don't know. Depends on how.
but we're gonna meet,
Are y'all gonna be
since
traveling?
you guys are gonna be gone, we're gonna still meet. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? Okay.
My only question would be for December. Christmas actually falls on Wednesday. That
We're meeting on that Christmas. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say, are you gonna reschedule it for a different day or just cancel the class entirely?
Should pick it up in January.
Yeah, we'll probably pick that up in January. But then we have New Year's as well. Is also on a Wednesday. So probably the 8th, and then we'll see.
Okay.
We'll adjust and see how things are going.
Okay.
And I didn't want to get too stringent with like a syllabus and stuff. I wanted it to kind of be week to week, like the way that we're doing it. But everybody's getting notifications on the Facebook, right?
Yep.
Yep.
We're not getting dumbed down with words like stringent and syllabus. Very good.
Good. I'll keep you astute. So that's fantastic.
There's another one.
But I will say,
His prognostications.
I said that I would give y'all an update about the pastor appreciation.
Oh
Okay? So boom boom gave card, and I called you about it today. So really it's Gary and Donna and Marissa. Okay? Now, here's what we're gonna do. Cindy, in her wisdom of art, recommended that we kind of postpone the pastor appreciation thing until the end of the class. So springtime. Are we in favor of that? We're gonna do some progressional things just to show our appreciation for our leadership. What you appreciate grows and blossoms. Any nagging, anything like that is uncalled for, especially in the church, but encouraging is what leadership needs. I would love to do something for the elders as well, but I don't want to burden us. So like if you want to do something individually, that's cool. But at least for Dave, being our head elder, our chief pastor, shepherd, right? Doing something at the end and progressionally. Like, so if you're, the law of magnetism, maybe you're inspired, like, man, Dave is so magnetic when he talks to people that they just listen to what it is that he's saying. It's like music when he's on stage or in person even. Then you can write, a little letter, and then we'll be adding that to the scrapbook progressionally. And you brought some stuff that you and I are going to go over.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna tell them too.
Did you finish
if
your water
we-
before 8:30?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
I was suggesting that, because he was saying scrapbook, and you can do these scrapbooks, I have a little app that you can do these scrapbooks, but it's not, Yeah, so you can pick out the backgrounds of all the pages, you can put words in there. So like if you had words, you could like, you could,
Dot?
yeah, that's Dottie.
Oh, she's so cute.
Now you got those
Sleeps
pictures.
with his tongue out.
Somebody
She
had
took
to,
these pictures with her phone.
yeah, but somebody had to
Parents.
blow them up, etc.
No,
didn't they?
there's an app that you go in
Oh,
and
that you
each
can
page
do it.
you can put in the pictures you want.
Oh,
So
that's
here's what
pretty
I'm
cool.
thinking, like if you take a picture of Pastor Dave, or you type something out and you can send it as maybe a PDF or just,
Mhm.
we can
Or a
screenshot
JPEG.
it or whatever, as long as we can get it in the format of a picture.
JPEG, yeah.
Yeah. We can,
Oh,
do,
that'd be cool.
do this, but you can put little things around it, you can, so it's much easier than trying to do a scrapbook, and I feel like it would be about the same cost as buying a scrapbook, buying the little extra things for it.
Printing out all the
Yes.
pictures.
You know,
and all
too,
that.
you can get on, if you get even on Facebook or whatever, you can get little pictures of like Yosemite Sam or Bugs Bunny or Chief Wahoo or anything. I mean, you could incorporate that into
I'll
something.
put Chief Stewart in
There
There you go.
But anyways, what you need to do is start like getting your thoughts together or writing something or whatever.
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I am writing a letter that is kind of written as like a Pauline letter, like to the church at Akron and Dave, the leader, like type of letter of just encouragement, just like Paul does in his letters of saying, hey,
Oh, that's
spur
pretty
this
neat.
on, and help with
Yeah.
these ministries, but don't cease to pray, and like
Mhm.
that type of thing. So
I was gonna do the picture of my baptism. Somebody, I didn't have family here, and Sherry Holmberg got a picture of
get
Pastor
that.
baptizing me.
Yeah.
Oh, that was.
See that? I think first of all, I think Elaine's gonna love it. Okay, because this is right up Elaine's alley. I think Dave's gonna be able to like look over it and definitely see and appreciate those relationships. Because what is a church or organization if there's no relationships? Like that's so important. So the memories, the photos, and showing that appreciation, I think it's advantageous and beneficial to do it as a group, which is why I recommended it in October. Unfortunately, I didn't see to it to make it happen then. But we can still have the consolation prize of doing it at the end. So
Should
on,
we get the card back?
What I
mean,
we can tape the card
suggested-
in there once we print it out is what I was thinking. But
Yeah, or we can also take a picture of the card and put it in there as
as a JPEG
as a-
file.
Okay.
Whichever is easier. I had asked Larry and he said we can just wait on it. As far as adding, I think we can add your card and anybody else who still wants to do a card, we can tape those in perhaps. Where y'all's was open, yours can be cut in half and do the half thing that you talked about. We can figure out some of the details in there. I'm going to be taking more selfies with Dave, and I'll be adding those. So I think it's
Take a
good.
picture of him mowing the lawn. That'd be great.
Yeah. Or
See,
trimming
I-
the bushes.
See, even like the I was thinking about the Halloween thing that we just did. I think if we could get a picture of Dave in his little chair with his thing on,
And the
and
glow sticks.
they actually came back from their vacation,
Yeah.
which first of all that was
Amazing.
and then they were out, he was out in the rain in his
Yeah.
wheelchair, dripping with
had to
all the
oil it
stuff,
up.
but doing everything everyone else was doing. He wasn't excluding himself or trying to stay dry or